Vegetation. In this lesson, we are going to add vegetation to our project. Inside Vegetation and Landscape folder in the library, we have folders for trees, brushes, grass and flowers, rocks, and miscellaneous. Let's start with trees. We have loads of tree types in the library here. Let's start by dragging and dropping date palm 2 to our scene. And there it is, that simple. While the palm is still selected, we can edit its preferences from down here. We can change size like this. Change the season from summer, autumn, or winter, or leave it to auto, and it will automatically change by changing weather in Twinmotion. As you can see, when the season is autumn, it turns to yellowish color, while in winter it turns to white as if it has some snow all over it, while summer it turns back to green. Wind on or off will animate wind effect on that tree if on, and keeps it still if off. To make another copy from that tree, we can either drag and drop a new one from the library, and in that case it will randomize size and rotation, so it will give you a different size tree every time you drag one to your scene. The second option is to copy that tree by pressing Shift while moving that tree. In that case, it will create an exact copy of that palm tree, and a copy window will appear, allowing us to choose to make it instance or copy. If we choose instance, then their attributes will be linked together. If we change something in one tree, it will change it to all instances. Unlike copy, we can change each palm individually. And of course, that applies to all trees and objects in the library. Let's move to Bushes folder, and here you will also find loads of good bushes that will suit every design. Next, we have Grasses and Flowers folder. If you drag and drop grass like this, it will drag a small patch of grass, and same goes with flowers. But it's very time consuming to copy that grasses and flowers one by one. Let's say I want to plant grasses in all this area. There is a better option to do that. Go to Nature, then click Vegetation. Inside Vegetation, we can paint brush with these objects. It works with grasses and flowers and also bushes and trees. Let's see how it works. Select these grasses, then we can either paint or erase using these two icons. Let's click on Brush and we can adjust diameter and density from here. Let's make it with a diameter of 1 meter and leave the density to 100%. Now we can paint our grasses by clicking and dragging like this. If it painted in an undesired area, we can erase with the eraser icon like that. We can paint with another type of grasses if we dragged it and drop it here. And since its slot is selected, now we are painting with it. If we choose to erase it, it will only erase the objects from the selected slots. That's why it will not erase Grass 1 objects unless I select Grass 1, then erase it. So to paint or erase, you have to select the desired object from their slots. Same way, I can choose to paint flowers and erase them. Same concept can work in a bigger scale using trees. Let's select this tree slot, increase the diameter, choose brush and brush a forest of this tree. If we press Ctrl and choose two types of trees, now we are painting with those two types. Or even three types, just press Ctrl and select its slots. Another tip for grasses: if we want to only paint on an object like this grass area here without going over the marble area here, simply select your desired area, open the object lists on the right, and we will find it highlighted. Click the three dots and choose to isolate. And now the object is isolated. Twinmotion only paints on it as it can't see other objects. Let's exit isolate, and there it is. For these steps, if I didn't want the grass to be on them, I should have made the grass object under it have holes in the steps area while modeling in 3ds Max. That way it would be perfect. But also I can use the eraser to erase some manually. You can add as many vegetation object types as you like. Just drag it on the drop here slot and a new slot for it will be created. Let's add these white flowers here and paint. Beautiful. We can also go up in the vegetation library and choose rocks to paint with. No problem. In miscellaneous, we have those objects like dead leaves, hedges, dead trees, and we can either paint them or just drag and drop them. To erase all vegetation objects, go to the vegetation category in the object list, select all and delete. Objects that are painted with a vegetation brush cannot be erased from here, and it cannot be selected manually. To erase them, we have to use the vegetation eraser, but it will only erase what's selected. So select first one, press Shift, and select the last one to select all. Then erase them all at once. And that's all we need to know about the techniques to plant our landscape. In the next video, we will watch a time lapse of my co-instructor Mishu while she was working and designing the landscape using the tool that we learned together with the Twinmotion library. Landscape. Now that we completed materials for our project, it is time to make beautiful landscape and plant some vegetation. And Twinmotion has some very powerful tools for that. Let's check them out. In this lesson, we will start by landscape. If we open the library from here, we will find that Twinmotion has already planned our workflow in order. So we now finished materials. Let's move on to vegetation and landscape. Click vegetation and landscape to go inside that folder. Then we have these 6 folders that will handle our landscape very nicely. Let's start by the first folder, landscape. Inside it, we have 2 options for our world landscape, flat or rocky grass land. Let's try flat landscape by dragging and dropping it into our scene. It will take a minute to prepare terrain that we can edit however we like. And there we have infinite flat terrain added to our scene. And if we opened our object list from here, we can find an object named flat has been added to the list. We can hide our modern villa and the canopy FBX, the starting ground, and leave only that flat landscape of an infinite plane of grass. Let's unhide all and hide the starting ground, and let's work on our flat landscape. As you can see, it is placed at the 0 level and it is blocking our swimming pool. When we select it from here, we have two options appears down there: sculpt and paint. If we press sculpt, that will open up tools where we can sculpt our landscape. First, we have our sculpting brush option. Its diameter, the intensity of the sculpting effect, and the shape of that brush. We have these four options. Up here, we can determine the function of that brush, whether we want it to raise, dig, smooth, noise, erode, and flatten. Let's start with raise. Click and drag and it will raise that landscape. Try flatten and it will flatten that landscape back down. Remember, in our scene, we already made our surrounding 3D landscape. If I hide our modern villa, that's the landscape we are editing. So, when we choose to dig, it will dig that flat landscape and our pool will appear back. So that digging is happening under our 3D model like that. So that's how we can dig holes in the flat landscape object. So when we unhide that villa, the landscape will not interfere with our pool. So maybe we want to sculpt little hills at the back here. Select the flat landscape, then press sculpt and raise some hills like this. Little intensity will go easy on the raising. Changing diameter will affect larger areas. Larger intensity will make longer and sharper hills. Ctrl+Z, we can undo our last move. Flatten will bring back some areas down. We can also sculpt with circle brush, smooth circle, stains like this, or blobs like this. And of course, that applies while raising, digging, flatten, or using any of these tools. Let's try smooth. Click and brush and it will smooth the landscape out. We also have noise, that is like the opposite of smooth. And erode is like giving the effect that nature makes over time, some erosion. and flatten, start flattening the landscape on the level you start your click at. So if you press up the hill, it will raise the surrounding to make that level flat. And that was the sculpt tools. You can get creative with it to make very interesting landscapes. Let's go up to landscape and discover paint. Click on paint here to go inside its options. First, we have 4 slots for materials. The first one is the main material for our landscape, which is grass 1. And the last one is the material that appears at the sides, which is mossy rocks now. If we dragged this grass 2 material down to that last slot, then that sides material will be changed to grass 2. If we change it to grass 1, then grass 1 would be applied to all sides as well. So that last one is responsible for the side materials that appears automatically when hills reaches a certain slope. And we can change it, for example, to pebbles, sand, or whatever material we like. Same goes with the main material slot. If, for example, we dragged wavy sand material to it, then the main material turns to wavy sand. So those two are the mainland and the height materials. What about those two in the middle? Those 2 slots in the middle are for the materials that we can paint with. For example, if my main material is grass and the sides are cobblestone, I can select this second material slot, which is grassy ground, and I can paint with it. And same goes with that third slot here. I can choose and paint. Now, let's say I painted some gravel, then I want to change it. Simply drag a desired material and drop it to that slot. And what was grassy ground has turned to asphalt. Change that third slot and turn it to concrete, no problem. We can control our brush settings from here. Diameter will change the brush size. Scale will scale the texture. Opacity will let you mix between materials. For example, you can paint some sand on the asphalt, but that sand is transparent like this. And lastly, the shape of our brush. We have stains, blobs, smooth circle, or circle. And that is the paint tools for landscape. Combine it with the sculpting tools and you can sculpt and paint textures for the landscape of your dreams. Now, all that applied to the flat terrain landscape surface, there is also another option called rocky and grassland. Drag and drop it to our scene, give it a minute to load, and it will replace our flat landscape with rocky and grassland. We can't have both. Select that land, and here it is. If we hide our project, we can see that Twinmotion randomly sculpted this rocky ups and down landscapes. And of course, sculpting and painting option can be applied to it. Now, regarding my villa project, it comes with a flat landscape, so unfortunately I will not use much sculpting of terrain, and I will only use the landscape I got from Max. So I will select the rocky and grass and delete it. Back to our modern villa, and let's start adding vegetation in the next video. Vegetation time lapse. In this lesson, we will watch a time lapse of my co-instructor Mishu while she was working and designing the landscape using the tools that we learned earlier, together with the Twinmotion library.